to
How's it
have you
going?
here.
Good to be here.
Sweet. So, Peter, you are the co-founder and CEO of PromptLoop, which is a Y Combinator backed AI company. We'll talk about the path that brought you here pretty soon, but maybe you could give just like a quick synopsis for everyone listening about what PromptLoop does and, kind of give us the elevator pitch, if you will.
Yeah, so PromptLoop is an AI platform that lets anyone who's working on market research connect and use AI models in Excel and Google Sheets. So, what that looks like for our users is doing things like looking up company information, websites, translating text, and reformatting any sort of text with custom AI models right inside Excel and with CSVs. So, we work with folks who, like many millions in the US, who are in spreadsheets all the time and make that easy and help usher them into an era where everyone's using AI models and AI models are working for everyone every day.
Awesome. So you're bringing these models into one of the most important environments for knowledge workers, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah, we meet and I'm sure we'll get into this, but like we meet users where they are and in the spreadsheet, the grid, if you will, is a great place for the instructions for the model telling it what to do, and then it's a great place to receive a lot of information that the model can go out and do for you. So we're all about big workloads, saving lots of time all at once, and removing as much overhead as possible. So as little new tools as needed, everything's done in the background, and then you can get results back from your models right where you need them, kind of on the minute, on the hour, so that you can go and have a weekend or sign off from your computer at an appropriate time
Cool.
is our goal.
Awesome. Well, we will dive deep, but before we do that, I know if I had asked you what you're up to, entrepreneurially, professionally over the last few years, you would have answered in a bunch of very different ways. But actually, throughout the length of our relationship, we met each other through the Y Combinator network out here in San Francisco. But I've always known you to be working on PromptLoop and actually being a relatively early builder in this new AI wave that has really struck the tech space and the entrepreneurship or the startup ecosystem of the Bay Area, certainly. But maybe you can give us a little bit of a sense of your story, what led you to building this, and then we can dive into the product and the vision for PromptLoop.
Yeah, sure. So I had a bit of a circuitous path to where I am now. I actually started off on the East Coast in DC. So went to school for international relations. Thought I was going to be speaking Arabic abroad for the rest of my career, but found my way into consulting for a number of years, and then worked for a small kind of tech advisory company. Eventually all of that culminated into starting to take my weekends and night projects into really wanting to build something impactful. So started working with my brother and co-founder on an application in a different space that brought us out to San Francisco into the ecosystem, obviously where we have eventually met, and then led us to eventually PromptLoop, which really is a culmination of looking at what is the biggest shift in the past 10, 20 years in what software can do, back to where I spend a lot of my time in consulting, working with clients, looking at a problem at hand, a research task at hand, and how we can pull whatever information we're looking for back into spreadsheets to get towards a business problem. So, from Excel guru to kind of TypeScript master, and then AI is the glue in between as that translator layer, which it does so well at, is what's brought us here. And there's obviously so much more coming in the future for every company working in this space. So I couldn't be in a better spot in terms of like where I think we can deliver value.
Yeah, so I know you were working on a previous venture which actually got you into YC in the first place, and you were building that company, and I don't know if it was that there were, headwinds that you experienced there, but certainly you made the decision, seems like a wise decision. And you were, like I said earlier, you were very early in shifting your focus into this space. So tell us a little bit, I guess, about that process of getting into YC, realizing you wanted to work on something different. What was the feedback from there? team and the accelerator ecosystem that they've built that's really phenomenal for supporting founders. And what has it been like really building this thing as an early adopter, and now with this onslaught of other entrepreneurs and builders kind of chomping at the bit to jump in the space as well.
Yeah, I guess the overarching thing is YC and our partners were hugely supportive of the getting off the ground process of our first product, and then eventually kind of moving towards what is now PromptLoop. Initially, we were building a tool, basically something we started building for ourselves and our friends, almost a CRM for someone to navigate a career search, a free consumer app. It was launched, kind of used by thousands of people all over the world, and is actually still online. But through that process, we realized that though it was a great product that people liked, it wasn't necessarily going to become, at least the way we were moving on it, a huge company. So we stepped back, and really what YC always says, and I mean the kind of the headline there is build something people want. So the first thing is to understand, like, what do you know, who do you know, for the people part, and then like what can you build that they want. And the more important part is not being able to build it, which we obviously can do, and why they focus so much on technical founders and teams, but also the what do they want. So I went back to really how I started getting into programming, which was working for a small investment fund near where I grew up, actually building Python models and AI and analysis into Excel for my boss at the time, and brought that back to kind of 2021, 2022, when these language models were blowing up. Their ability was kind of going through the roof, and still every day people were sending simple tasks off to cost center countries and really wasting a lot of time on things that models can do in milliseconds. So that was the connection point for me of going back exactly to where I felt the most comfortable using Excel, building and customizing Excel for consultants, analysts, investors, etc., and then bringing in the new technology wave that was AI. So YC was supportive through that. They don't know what exactly you can solve, but they push you to think about where you have a particular understanding and competence. Because I think in the first 4 weeks of a startup, anything seems like it's doable. But if you find out you're building or serving customers that you really don't know anything about or don't enjoy working with, it becomes a lot more challenging. And frankly, you're just going to run out of steam.
So you basically realized that the first company that you were working on wasn't where it was at. You didn't want to spend the next 10 years building that business, but you saw opportunity through actually rolling up your sleeves and reflecting on work that you had done previously and thinking, maybe I can make this more efficient for folks like myself that were doing this work. Is that that's
Yeah, exactly. Kind of going back and finding really the work I liked doing. And I mean, the best way to think about it is work things you find interesting that other people would be quite bored if you talked about at length at a party. Excel is probably one of those things, and that type of work. So leaning on that allowed me to connect with early users before we had any product, and just start to think about what could be kind of like a very minimal thing we could deliver to you. That turned into kind of exciting early connections, even really before we had any client app and Google Sheets and Excel. And now, as we move beyond both of those platforms to do more for that user type in general, has been the journey. But feeling comfortable in knowing what those folks are thinking about, the things they don't want to do, the things they do want to do, has been hugely helpful.
yeah. So you mentioned that, speaking of YC in particular, there's been this orientation towards builders and people who can actually execute on a product vision and roadmap. But equally important is people who can understand the needs of their customers and actually reach the customers where they are in some form of growth and marketing mechanism. And from just following along with PromptLoop at a distance for a while now, I really feel like your first intuition around bringing these models into these extremely important environments where knowledge workers are spending time was ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. But since then, obviously, we've seen literally the owners of the spreadsheets are rolling out functionality that they are making keynote addresses about bringing this tech into these environments. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective as the co-founder of a startup in this space, what is your intuition that you can either maybe not stay ahead of these big businesses, but chart out your own territory in this space that is differentiated? And what is the thing that will cause someone to ultimately be a paying customer for PromptLoop versus just using some functionality that's baked into software that they use?
Yeah, I mean, great question, and something we probably started thinking about almost before we really needed to, and that it was pretty obvious that Google, Microsoft, everyone is going to bring the AI to the user. I mean, we saw that almost immediately after ChatGPT, where most tech companies had their help support guides all of a sudden become a chatbot, right? Because that's something a competent engineer can at least make a high level version of and quite quickly. And in the same way, some of our very early features that were less customized to market segments are extremely easy for those firms to roll out. And we saw demos, and now of course we're seeing some of those first features come to the workspace suite on the Google side and Office on the Microsoft side. How we think about it is actually, I think, a slightly underappreciated way to think about a lot of companies that are using big models as a big part of their value prop, is that because a language model is trained on trillions of tokens of text, the initial out of the box version is actually can be perceived by the user as being much more customized to their use case. So if I run a very specific business that sells tire parts in a part of the world, I can get a model that can say write marketing copy very specific to my business type, and that's always attractive. Everyone wants something to be customized to them. That's part of the reason this is so valuable out of the box. But the important thing is to go beyond that, because you almost get that level of customization up front. You need to kind of do more on the engineering side as a company in the background to kind of earn the trust and value and retain customers in a particular market working on a particular problem. The value, because you have customization to some level out of the box, is what companies are looking for is control more than everything delivered on a specific platter, because every industry has vertical software they can use that does their flow, their commerce, what have you for them. The AI platforms that are going to be powerful, just like Excel, is that I can take a spreadsheet that's blank and make a content plan for a marketing company to guide them to an extra 1,000 Instagram followers. And I can use that exact same spreadsheet to put together a DCF to buy a metal manufacturing company in India. So, one of the things we think about a lot is we're building models, tasks, and pipelines to do specific things like find something on the internet, find a list of names we're looking for, reformat or repackage a piece of text or label something based on meaning. We can turn that into building blocks that someone can take and put together for their industry, in our case, market researchers, to customize it to their needs and then get a better read on what they're looking for. What we can do is lean more into the user segments that we're working with, which is a lot of consultants, investors, and business owners who are doing market research either on their market or prospective markets. And we can lean way more deeply into those usually pretty experienced spreadsheet users who know what they want. They have large jobs that are a lot different than what maybe Google's median user is, that they're really excited about building for, because they're less interested in winning the fringe business than for $10 a month or $15 a month for workspace. They want to sign up 500 million people who are doing their Christmas card lists or more general tasks.
Mhm.
So it's always kind of depth and specificity is where companies can excel. And we can actually go to you if you, with your company, have a specific task that you're looking for and you're already thinking about using a firm or outsourcing or doing something like that, we can sit down, build an agent for you, customize it, and deploy something that you don't have to leverage any of your engineering resources. You can get started right away. And that's never going to be something that's going to be, at least outside of the cloud versions of those companies, that will be offered. So
Yeah.
we're both a cloud provider and the application, whereas Google, Microsoft et al. Are both kind of one or the other. They're either building for the developer or building for the average user.
Mhm. As much as there is AI bleeding through every keynote of a big technology company right now, and even outside of tech, a lot of the actual use cases are being left to the user, sometimes intentionally. Microsoft and Google and these big platform companies and ecosystems that serve 500 million users of Sheets, for example, they are saying, hey, we're giving you the tools, you go figure it out. But they're leaving open this opportunity for companies like PromptLoop to come in and go much deeper and also maybe be a little bit prescriptive of the use cases, and so build the tech that solves for those use cases and also go out to those specific people and say, hey, we've made this better than what you're going to get out of the box from big tech, and it's just going to work, and we're going to show you how to use it and get value out of it. So that's kind of the approach that you're taking right
Yeah,
now.
that's it. And it's also, if you have large workloads that you have full-time employees at your company working on, we're setting ourselves up and try to be more of a partner, and let's get these workloads done for you much faster, and then customize the agents to do them better than you're even doing them now, versus, hey, here is a chat box, or here is just a formula you can use and kind of go crazy with it. So it's more of a partnership. The more guides we can put together, the more tools we have where our models will pick up what you're looking for based on what we've seen hundreds of companies do before. Every time we can kind of keep that tight loop going, we have that flow ready to be deployed for a new customer that comes in and is looking for that solution. So it's really more like what you would kind of go to a dev shop or a cloud provider for, in that you're getting some piece of somewhat custom software flow. It just happens to be powered by language models in our case to get it done.
So there's two following questions I have about this. One being, do you anticipate this is the type of work and the type of customer use cases where you may work with a particular segment, go deep, roll up your sleeves, and kind of provide even something like a managed service to build out that solution, but then you end up with a customer a customer, and then maybe even similar customers who are going to be able to continue using that customization for a very long period of time, and so you're basically able to justify that time expenditure? Or are you worried that because the space is moving so quickly and there's new models and there's new even hardware that is being launched on custom clouds and things like that, there will be this constant need to try to stay ahead of the curve, and you'll have customers that may churn out?
In the environment where there's a new breakthrough every week, we try to focus very specifically on what we're doing and what we're not doing for what customers are asking us for. One example is when the GPT-4 API and a lot of the chat APIs came out several months ago, a lot of companies shifted everything they're doing to kind of whatever the latest OpenAI release was. And I
Yeah.
mean, in a sense, for marketing, a lot of customers were looking for GPT-4. But what we realized is giving someone access to GPT-4, whether it be in their Excel or Google Sheets alone, isn't particularly moving the needle on how much value we could drive for them. So instead, what we're doing is focusing on how can we bring down the costs, bring up the speed, bring in smaller, more customized models for customers, and then simply on the kind of UX side, make our platform a little bit different than how you said it. So like, as someone needs more customization, they can walk up a tier and in kind of our plan and service offering, where they start with models that are customized towards tasks that they can get started using right away. They can use our autopilot platform where you upload a CSV, kind of detect automatically what you're looking for and run a large job all at once and have the results emailed to you. And then on the third tier is use our kind of auto tune and model customization pipelines to get something specific that your company enterprise fully owns, trains on the data you're using it for, exclusive to you. And that looks a lot more like what the team would have if they had four or five AI engineers in house building software for them. So like that pathway, I think exists in many different sectors right now. For us, it's like I said, the folks I mentioned earlier who we're serving right now, and then as we do more for them, that evolves. But it's definitely a bit of a continuum as things flow up towards how much we want to control, own, and specify. But right now, it's not everyone has access to ChatGPT, right? So getting a chat model that can do one-off tasks for you isn't particularly a unique value offering. And we've talked about the space being busy. There's lots of companies. I mean, there's a dozen companies that have seemingly launched similar things to some of what we were doing originally. But the important thing is most companies we talk to have pretty high paid humans doing work that they'd rather not be doing. And that is still hugely untapped. Awareness is there, but the market of tasks and workloads that are still unsolved, even by models of 2 years ago, is pretty massive. And I think that
Yeah.
that's still understood. And the layer is not necessarily having GPT-4, it's putting models together in a way where you can get the most leverage on Grant giving some instruction set of what he wants. In our case, it would be uploading a CSV or having a list of tasks that you want done. And then the leverage on top of that is how much can we have the models do for you? You don't really care what models they are. You want cheap, fast, and efficient. And then beyond that, you want customized and some sort of differentiated value that you can then improve on your own. Like all of those together is where there's value. And that's not
Mhm.
exclusive to us. I think the best companies are doing that. I mean, we're filming a podcast right now. Companies I admire that like get the UX and have gotten the UX really well, like Descript for YouTube creators is like a tool where you can upload a video recording like we're doing now. And just that simple upload step, they can do a huge amount of leverage on cleaning up the audio, letting you trim it really easily, doing all these things with simple instructions from the human beyond sending the transcript off to GPT-4 once for some sort of big summary or analysis, which is powerful and is, in terms of the AI itself, super impressive. But in terms of you're very busy and maybe have a lot of podcasts at it, you want to get the most leverage and you don't necessarily care what model does it.
There's probably armies of people who are doing a very repetitive task in Excel that they've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years or more. And you're able to come into that group. And if you can create a big time savings or efficiency for them, the nice thing is that they're also maybe the type of customer that finds a new way to do things and then locks themselves in for another long period of time, even as the world is changing around them, just because they found a solution that works, and it could maybe be a 10x time savings or maybe even more. Maybe I'm sure you have customers who are seeing even more time and efficiency from the tool set. I was going to ask, it occurs to me that right now in your relatively early stage as a business, that you guys are doing some of this work to make this valuable and relevant and in these particular verticals. But do you see a scenario where PromptLoop becomes more of a platform for third parties to basically do work in industries and areas that you yourselves as a business don't necessarily understand, and they could earn revenues from the usage downstream of that work? Is it, or where does the vision kind of scale from a small team building the initial company?
Yeah, I think every company would love to have elements of a platform with them. I think where we see it as almost the our customers are part of the ecosystem in that our models right now use existing data inside your spreadsheet or the data set you have at hand, in addition to things on the internet. A lot of our customers have information whether first party to them about their business itself or information they purchase about the broader market, which they're using PromptLoop alongside to build more of a bespoke data set to then obviously get a business advantage and execute where they want to. Where we're heading and working with folks on is connecting the two and letting our tool, just like Excel is today, where you can pull in data from 5 different sources into one spreadsheet and then it becomes useful for your team. We want our models to be able to interface, be it with APIs or other data sources integrated in the kind of the landing page where you are at, which is the kind of Excel receiving end. So we see that as being pretty exciting where customers, everyone's going to have a different flavor of our models based on what they already have. Just like if you have a blank Excel file, you technically have the same starting point as the Goldman Sachs investor who has the DCF that he's using for the IPO and charging a few $1 million for. The difference there is obviously what room you're sitting in and what data set you have. So we want that. There's no reason why our models need to start from the same point for every company. So we're working a lot with a few folks on making that happen, like not necessarily needing folks to have their own in-house AI model, which I think is working in some cases, but having just a tool that can plug into all the information you have in a very minimalistic way and then go out to the internet or to whatever data sources you already have to answer questions for you. So that's like one instance where I see there being more of an ecosystem already. I think in 3 or 4 years, we're going to see a lot of more model to model communication. I mean, where right now, where a language model can be most effective is in connecting between maybe your human instructions. Now, if you're looking at a chatbot, it's a human chat into kind of the set of data the model's been trained on, or some action like a web search, or folks who are doing data analysis, maybe something like a SQL or a data lookup. So that glue towards other data sets that companies are bringing to their platform is pretty exciting.
We did a interview with Richard Rabat, who's the CEO of a company called Lighty AI, and they're actually building an assistant product, but for the business space to help with productivity, and could be simple tasks like scheduling, but it also could be that something is discussed in a meeting and there's tasks that are assigned, and I feel like we're headed down this path where that assistant could hand off a task to prompt loop in some way, and
Right.
you're building a much, that if you think of them as this horizontal layer, you're like this vertical layer that would go really deep in a particular area of a business.
Yeah, exactly. We're the kind of research and question answering piece of the puzzle right now. So if you think of that as an employee, what I just mentioned would be, hey, let's get our new employee access to X, Y, and Z. They already have Google Chrome, so they can browse the internet and they're pretty sharp, so they can find what we're looking for. But get them log into kind of this service, like that connection point is where a lot of things are coming, I think, that are exciting for the tools we use and obviously PromptLoop itself. But the best employees ask the right questions and like definitely don't just go work in a corner on their own, but
Mhm.
also when you give them clear exact instructions and they know context about your business, they can go off and do a lot of work for you. So
Yeah.
that's how we try to get our models tuned to be not just being able to wow us once, but continually deliver value, even if it's simple tasks like doing it thousands of times in a row is where you really start to see
Hmm.
value. And obviously they work 24/7 and on the weekends. So
Yeah.
we have, interestingly, as much activity of like new customers and demo requests on Sunday nights as we do on Tuesday during the workday. And I think that shows a lot of like where folks are really wanting this, not just, hey, I'm interested in a demo, but I have this huge project for a Tuesday morning meeting and I need help today. So
Hmm.
that's where we know we're kind of on to like a little bit more of an excited customer, as it's not just look at what GPT-4 can do, but it's, hey, I know this is possible and I don't want to do this redundant task. So, like, let me get a serious solution that can help me do this, and folks who will kind of answer a Slack message if I need help.
From what you just described there, it feels like you've really charted out a path where, despite the fact that there's a ton of noise in the space and a lot of building, that you have plenty of blue ocean to build in, and a lot of customers who really could benefit from what you're building. You were just talking briefly about the fact that this can become almost like another employee of a company, or it augments the work certainly, but maybe replaces some of the work that humans are doing right now. So maybe we can segue a little into just the broader implications of this new AI wave of companies like PromptLoop. This may be fear mongering, but there's certainly in science fiction been a lot of instances described where artificial intelligence has really serious and negative impacts. And I think the most tangible short term one is just the fact that now there's a new type of machine that can replace the work that previously was done by people. So not to say that prompt loop is it's your responsibility to prevent that necessarily, but what do you think about an organization that goes very headstrong into adoption of these technologies? How will that impact the size of teams, the type of work that people are doing, especially based on experience that you have maybe doing some of this work yourself prior to now building tools that can supercharge that type of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the back of a lot of folks' minds, and we try to think about that when we're having conversations with a lot of our customers are not tech companies. They are folks in different industries that understand the potential of these models, but don't necessarily have an engineering culture, aren't trying new software tools every week. So we try to come to them not with, hey, here is a solution that can replace one of you, but here is a tool that can allow you to do more work. And I think what's true, at least in the vast majority, if not all of our customers, is that there's such a shortage of really high quality information about particular markets and like particular business decisions that there's no point at which you're going to stop investing in information. So our models will augment oftentimes what someone is doing manually in house or a service provider. That's usually the person we're working with. So it's not we go to kind of an owner of a company, they turn on prompt loop and then lay people off. That's just not really a reality. Even I don't think it really is for any tools being sold right now. What it is we partner with a company, we work with the people actually using the tools who are delighted to not have to do everything manually, able to run workloads and then kind of go home an hour earlier or just take on more work and win more clients is usually the answer, much more than saving time. So
Yeah.
if you can use PromptLoop to get a better understanding of your market, be that more leads, kind of more deals or more service to whoever's paying you for your services, then that's a win, and that actually might mean more employees. So
Mhm.
I think the mindset shift is it is going to displace things you're doing, but the people doing them are just going to be able to accomplish more. And if we can design the tools right, this isn't something that only someone with a computer science degree from Stanford can use. It can be something that anyone can use, which I think is the promise. So
Mhm.
there's going to be everyone's changing the way they're doing things, including, I mean, software engineering is changing rapidly. And maybe there's a world where to build something like prompt loop, you're not kind of first party writing code like we are today in the next few years, but there's still going to be need to be people to build these companies. Everything is going to evolve up a level, which almost always means doing more meaningful work. So maybe you make only the highest level decisions like your boss was making before, and you don't need to spend hours and hours Googling things,
Mhm.
which most people we talk to are very happy to offload. So that's how we like to frame it, not as saving time, saving employees, but being able to take on more work with the same employees and
Yeah.
taking what they're doing and like elevating it up a level. And that's not really just a marketing trope. It's really what we see and how the folks at companies we see most excited at PromptLoop oftentimes are kind of folks working in lower cost areas who are maybe hired to do this task manually, but now they're the point person to take on the AI tool, set it up, and get it running. So
Yeah.
that's actually been encouraging because it's something I thought going in, but has been corroborated by what we've actually seen.
The way I look at it is that there's kind of FOMO coming from two directions in this era where AI is starting to bleed through everything. And one of the directions is that, you know, I don't want to be the company that doesn't figure this out, and my other competitors have figured out a way to add this efficiency to their business, and suddenly they're out competing me because they're, you know, five-person team is doing the work of 20 people, and my five-person team is doing the work of five
Exactly.
people, and thus that impacts that my business. On the flip side, there's this idea that, wow, if I actually can, you know, as an individual contributor or as a business owner, if I can dig in and figure out a way to add this new capability, new skill set, new efficiency to the work that I do, then I can be the one that can do, you know, multiples more output, and maybe then I become a clearly winning solution in the market, and then ultimately grow the business. The other thing that it seems very clear is that there's plenty of work in the world that doesn't get done because it doesn't justify the expense, or it doesn't crack the, you know, the top priorities list because it's just not high value enough. But if you can use AI technology to make that highly repetitive task, you know, much easier to accomplish, then you actually may do the task that you wouldn't have done previously, or you may drive certain types of work downstream into areas of businesses where previously it was too expensive to think about. We just had a conversation with a company that's doing this with legal contracts, where there's very clearly circumstances where a consumer would benefit from reviewing a contract with a lawyer, but it's not justifiable to spend the
Exactly.
time to talk to a lawyer. But if they can have a inferior version of that experience with the lawyer, then that person wasn't hiring a lawyer previously. Now they're maybe spending a little bit of money to have this legal feedback given to them by a model. And so again, I would say it's an example just corroborating what you're saying of more work, more output being done, which is a great thing for, I would say, economies and ultimately all of our livelihoods.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. And I think it's two things. I mean, we see more of the former where it's maybe not something that was too expensive to do before, but a lot of our customers are in not services businesses, but businesses are constrained by the teams they have trained, folks they have working at the firm, and there's more potential work and deals to win. So they are already maybe executing at max capacity. So they take that same team, or maybe one person within the team becomes the champion of using kind of a new tool like ours. And then all of a sudden they win one more or two more deals with the same core team and same core competency. And all of a sudden that kind of pays for itself tenfold, which is, I think, common across law firms, like a lot of these tools that folks are realizing the potential of.
Mhm. Are you yourself or your co-founder or other team members, are you using AI tools already in your workflow, and how are those manifesting themselves just in the work that you get done?
Yeah, so we use several we use our own product on our kind of operations workflow, including some of our ways in which we can stay really close to helping customers out on particular maybe questions they might be running into or places they are on getting ramped up. And then we use a lot in our in our tech stack and developing and understanding and like quickly adopting, be it kind of new AI frameworks or tools we think that we can pass on and value to customers. So with the team we have, we try to ship and move pretty fast, which has been helpful. Obviously, that's something startups can do. We can release and kind of customize a new feature in like under 30 days for new bigger customers that are rolling on, which is like continued to differentiator, and we're using AI tools on the dev side to help with that. But yeah, we're always kind of looking and thinking about platforms, especially ones that can run in the background. We don't have a chief of staff or that sort of role obviously on hand. So I have several model pipelines that are running in the background all the time to stay up to task on what's going on at the company.
There's many, as we've said, new founders who are jumping into the space. Is there any advice that you would give through your experience, building an application in the AI space, leveraging some of these third party models for other people who are just starting this journey that you could impart?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like being optimistic about finding that problem you want to solve and then finding the people that want it solved is the real challenge of getting a company that has like a large growth potential off the ground. I think if you look at the internet, it looks like everything is solved, and there's a lot of very compelling demos doing things that make it seem like there's kind of no more to explore in any space, and that's just not the case. I think everywhere, even companies that are way ahead of the pack are still nowhere near where they're going to be in 2 3 years. So there's lots to be built. And I mean, for example, like things we're not doing as much on the quantitative analysis side, even though that's like some of what I did originally right now. So there's like plenty of companies in that space that are really exciting, and we're referring customers to different AI startups all the time who we're not a perfect fit for because we really only have time to onboard and scale up with folks who are a good match right now. So yeah, I think it's there's a lot being built. It's quite easy to get started and make a demo. I think the hard part is finding customers that want to lean in and trust you, and that you are motivated to build with and work with is also important.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. It's definitely a giant in the startup community. Maybe a Paul Graham or a Mark Andreessen or something. But the idea that everyone arrives in Silicon Valley and it just feels like it's already happened. Like you missed the boat. This is
Yeah.
done. The ship has sailed. And the reality is, and certainly right now, it feels like no, like there's tons of opportunity. You just gotta be present and working and building. And so the last thing that I did want to ask about is there's been a lot of buzz, I would say, in in the startup world that AI really is epicentered in San Francisco, and that there's founders who are moving to the city specifically to build and be around other people who are building. And you've been here for a while now building an AI company. Is that true? Do you feel it? Is there energy? Are you rubbing shoulders with a lot of interesting people doing other interesting things? Do you find people coming out who are looking for jobs in the space, or is this kind of just another narrative that the media is spinning?
I think it depends. There's always a little bit of both. Ironically, one of the helpful things about being there and building there is that a lot of the narrative is maybe more what you said about, oh, everything is built, and or OpenAI is doing everything and we should all sit back and just wait for that to happen. All problems are solved. Being there and talking to especially early stage companies, everything from model training where they're spinning up their own GPUs in a warehouse somewhere, all the way to kind of everything on the application layer closer to where we are. People are running into the same problems. You can see what is really the leading edge and what might be the kind of leading edge on an enterprise AI ad in an airport, and then get a like good triangulation on where we should spend our time. And then we obviously immediately translate that to what we're offering customers, and we educate folks a lot as they get started. So there's definitely an ethos of like what's going on, and being close to that is always important. One thing I think about a lot is it's actually in San Francisco, the Walt Disney Museum, which talks about the founder and that company getting started 100 years ago, has a famous quote on it from Disney at the time when he arrived in LA and started cartoon drawing and animation. He said that it seems like everything's done, all the businesses are started, and there's not much left to do. Which obviously in 1929, at the start of like the 100 years of Disney, was not the case. But a little. Sometimes it feels like that. He needed to make that travel to LA to be close to everything, which was the right move at the time. And I think that is the case for technology companies and AI specifically, which has been impactful to be there. So it's seeing the
Yeah.
reality in the trenches, but also getting enough cross pollination with other companies and employees and whatnot that's made it worth it.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here, folks. Move to San Francisco if you're building an AI company. I think that's what I took from that answer. So this has been an awesome conversation, Peter. Obviously, Prompt Loop. We've said the name many times. PromptLoop.com. You guys have a solid domain there. If I were a consultant or working in finance and listening to this, I would certainly be looking you guys up right now. But are there other verticals of companies that you would encourage to come check out the site? Are you hiring? Are there any other things that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think folks who are kind of in Excel doing research and scaling up any web browsing research kind of are looking for these tools. That's who we're engaging with, be it business owners or the folks you mentioned. For in terms of getting in touch, you can certainly sign up for a demo on our website. We're super responsive there, and then obviously reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I'm happy to get you started as soon as possible and set up folks with the tools they have, as I said, or point them in the right direction if we're not the right solution, which is just as important. So this has been great. Love seeing what you guys are doing and getting the word out and diving deep with companies on this. And maybe look forward to doing another one of these in a little bit.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Peter. This has been a pleasure.